What is the trick of finding your soulmate, and is it really possible?
I believe it's absolutely possible. You know, for me, career came easy because I had that example, you know, and that definitely did help. Relationship, I wouldn't say I had the best example growing up, so it's something that I had to kind of work through to figure it out.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, I would not always choose the best situations for me. And just as I'm saying, you know, what happened for me when I had the wake-up call, I also had the wake-up call in the relationship. And, you know, I'd say that the relationships that I choose, you know, they weren't bad people. It's just that they really weren't a good match for me or my life. And so we'd spend time together, and as time would go on, maybe I would get frustrated, they would get frustrated, because really the way we looked at life and what we really desired didn't match up.
Right.
And so I had this realization when I was in one of those situations and feeling frustrated and saying, you know, Allison, it's your own fault. Why are you sitting here and being miserable? This makes no sense. I'm choosing to be in a situation that I'm not happy. And I, again, got that little voice from inside that said, why don't you choose a partner that actually fits the things that you really value in your life, and, you know, maybe has similar interests of the things that you love to do? And it was like, wow, that would be so much easier, you know, than trying to, you know, of course you can't really change someone, but, you know, often we think, oh,
Doesn't
well,
stop us from trying.
we try, and that's just futile and exhausting for everybody. And so from that point, I thought, you know, I'm really ready to meet my soulmate. I'm really ready to meet, you know,
like a
Mr.
starting
Right.
place.
That was the first thing. The second thing was that I had finally become clear on who I was as a person, and that was an involvement. You know, you don't always see that when you're younger.
Right.
But I knew that I'm a passionate person. I love to live life fully every day. I love to go out. I love to travel and really embrace life. So if I'm with somebody that doesn't have that kind of spirit, or is more of a homebody, I knew that just wasn't going to work. I'm an entrepreneur, so why don't I get involved with someone that's also an entrepreneur so that we can make our own hours and travel together? If I'm with somebody that's in the corporate world and they only have 1 or 2 weeks a year, that's going to create a damper. And, you know, those are little things we don't really think about.
Right.
But it's like, yes, the partner, but what about the relationship? And so I wrote out exactly what I wanted in a partner, in a man, and also in the relationship.
Right.
And then I emailed my 5 girlfriends, and I said, this was like in June, and I said, I'm going to meet my soulmate on August 12th. And
bold.
And I said, and we're going to be getting married 1 year from that time. And so they all wrote me back and said, okay, Allison, you know, we know you, and when you get your head on something, you're pretty determined. So, you know, we'll see you at the wedding. And so
unwavering faith in you.
It was.
And your ability to create.
Now, in the midst of all this, you know, of course, there's always the voices. It's really hard to meet someone, you know, after the age of 40. There's not really very many good men out there. You know, relationships are hard. You know, I mean, those voices are going on all the time. Just as the economy's bad, there's no opportunity. Same thing. I chose not to tune in. If people were talking like that, I would be, la, 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 I don't hear that, I don't hear that. That's because that's not in sync with what I'm creating in my life.
Right.
And so I got on Match.com, actually, and every guy that I would go on a date with, I told them that I was looking to meet my soulmate on that very first date, because I wanted them to know where I was coming from, and if they didn't want that, I didn't want to waste their time, and I didn't want them to waste my time. And I was really clear. And if they were not lining up with what was on my list, it was like, very nice to know you. So there were some very brief encounters there. And then I was getting emailed by this one particular gentleman, and he wrote me like 3 times, but he misspelled some, several words in his profile, and, I can kind of be a little grammar snob there. And so I didn't write him back. The 3rd time he wrote me, he said, look, I really feel that we should meet. If you are interested, here's my number. So I called him, and we set a time to meet for coffee. And it was like a Thursday morning. And then I'm in the Starbucks the day before, and I go to get my chai tea, and I turn around, I see this guy, and I say, I think that's my date, but I had just seen his picture.
Right.
But I didn't want to say anything to him because maybe he wasn't. And then he turned around, and we locked eyes, and we had this moment where we just both knew. And I still didn't say anything to him. I walked out of the place, and he told me later that he came looking for me. And then I saw him the next morning when we met for our date.
Wow.
And that was on August 4th. So it was actually sooner than my
premature.
date. And we got married the next August.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
So applying the same basic principles, you did your big picture vision. You got very specific about what you wanted.
Right.
I love what you said about the other kind of fun. You got ready, and you got really clear that you were ready, and you were very specific about what you were looking for. You weren't looking to hook up. You weren't looking to date. You weren't looking to experiment or explore or have an adventure. You wanted your soulmate.
Right.
So you got real clear about that.
Right.
And you got real clear about who you were.
Right.
And what you wanted in your life.
And also that idea of I wasn't willing to settle. Now, I had some decent relationships in the past, and I had many times a friend would say, well, Allison, he's a really nice guy.
Right.
What's your problem?
Right. Right.
But I knew inside it just wasn't it.
Yeah.
And you could say, oh, she's really picky or whatever, but it just, something inside just didn't feel right. It wasn't, filling me the way that I felt that I knew it could. And so because I didn't settle, and I was willing to keep trying.
And just keep in the faith.
Keep trying, and then he came along.